Hello, I'm Mark, and welcome to my introductory video on how to make a data-driven and dynamic spawn controller for your Unreal Engine games. So I'm going to be doing something a little different for this video, and by showing off the final product of what we'll be building over the course of my next set of videos. So what we have here is a little spawn controller component that we will be creating, and it is being hosted in this little actor here, which is represented by a rock. And as you can see right now, I've got nothing up my sleeves. We've got some triggers, pretty empty solution with some triggers, a nav mesh, and pretty much the other standard objects which come within this project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit the play button. As you can see, we're set for proximity mode. So first off, since we're in debug mode, we're going to be able to see the proximity field. So the blue is the spawn in and the green is the spawn out. And as you can see right now, the scenario, I have two scenarios created. And so it's a 50-50 coin toss on which scenario is coming in. So right now we're bringing in the people and shares scenario. So we have 4 people over here, we have 3 people over here, and with someone waiting on the ramp, and we have the chairs. So if I come over to the proximity, close to the proximity field, right, and this is measuring every second or every tick, it's measuring the distance between me and this rock. So as I come out to the green, it will run a despawn, and it will despawn our scenario. So as you can see, nothing's there. If I cross over the spawn out field, nothing happens, and I spawn in, and we respawn the scenario, but this time it's going to give us a different pawn count. So we got a slightly different number of characters, but it brought in the same scenario. So this solution will give you the ability to create some randomness in how it spawns things in, if that's what you're looking for. And as you can see, the reason why we have a difference between spawn in and spawn out is so that we can make sure that we've got a nice dead zone here, so that if we move out of that, we are saying, okay, we definitely want it to unspawn so that we can respawn in. So if I come back in, and hey, 50-50 coin toss, and we have a slightly different solution. And this one is just this metal tree, a statue, as far as the scene component, and we've got this character which is back up here on the ramp. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just pause this, so we'll scroll out, and we'll come back making sure that I have the instance selected, so that's the rock, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to go into the spawn controller components, and I'm going to switch her over to external only, and I'm just going to turn off the debug. So by switching to external, so we have 2 modes. Internal proximity will use the spawn in radius and spawn out radius to determine when to spawn in a solution or a scenario. And where external will use these 2 triggers boxes that I set up. So one trigger box will bring in one, the other trigger box will bring in the other. And the scenarios are actually going to be defined on this data table, which we'll get to a little bit later. But if I just come in, as you can see, we're in external mode now. So again, since we don't have proximity, didn't randomly create one here. So in order to generate one, we're just going to go, and as you can see, boom, it brought in the people. And if I come over to the other trigger box, which is around the corner, it's brought in the other set piece. And then also, I've got this so that we can set it up so that it can save and load it from a saving and loading system. So if I hit the 1 key, we've gone ahead and saved the data for this piece here. And so if I then come in, it's going to go and despawn the old one, respawn in a new one. And if I hit the 2 key, it will revert it back to the original configuration, which we saved it as. So that's just a quick little demo to show that we can then save the data and load the data, reload it, so it's compatible with the saving and loading system as well. Alright, so if I come back out, so as you can see, we've got the spawn controller here, and we've got these transforms, and scene actor transform, pawn transform 0, 1, and 2, and these will allow us to create a more targeted approach on how we want to spawn in various groups or set pieces within the spawner. So I'm just going to open this up, come to the console. So here's our data table. So let's go ahead and open it up. So I'm going to come into our content drawer, find our data table here, and let's go over the data table. So I'm just going to close that drawer, reselect that, and try and just minimize this a little bit so it's a bit easier. So as you can see, we'll just zoom out a little bit. So here are the two scenarios. I've got the table scenario and I got the statue and tree scenario, and they're set up in the table. We've got a little bit of metadata here that can be used in the table, just so that if I'm coming into the table I can figure out which scenario I'm looking at. And then within the scenario, it's broken into two parts. You've got the pawn group, which is for pawns and for characters, and then you have the scene actors. And the scene actors are just consider it kind of like stage scenery that you might want to bring in, additional scenery components that you might want to bring in for the set scenario. So here under scene actors, under table and chairs, I have a blueprint which just has the table and chairs, and then that will bring it down here. And then under the trees and statue, I just created a second one, which is trees and statues. And the way this works is this just points to the blueprint that I want to use. This is just a handy name, so I know what I'm looking at. And then this just says that we're going to be mapping this to this transform point. So you can have multiple scene actor transform points if you wanted to, and then you could map multiple scene components. And just like you can have multiple pawn transform points to help spawn in your characters around those. So if I open up, if I come in, I'm going to come under chair since it's a bit more detailed. And so what we've done for our group, we have the pawn groups, and within that we can create two groups. So this is from a bit more for organizational standpoint. So we can have group A and group B. This is just characters. And then under that we've got the list, and then this is where we can create some variation in what we actually spawn in. So group B is tied to transform 2, which is over here, and it will spawn in the third-party characters, anywhere between 2 and 4 of those. And I've also configured it so it can use random rotation and random location. So if we use random location, then it will automatically use the spawn radius to determine where around this point to spawn in. And since I have a nav mesh up, it's also going to then use the nav mesh. So it will spawn in those characters where it feels a character can be safely spawned in on that nav mesh. And in the rotation, it just means that every character that's spawned in will can look a random direction from the direction of the transform. So that's the B. So now if I come to group 1, group 1's using the 0 transform, and it's using the first transform. So transform 0, transform 1, and then as I've mapped them, so transform 0, I've just called this one the boss. It's one of min size of 1, max size of 1, which means it's always ever going to spawn 1 in there. I've turned off random rotation and random location, which means that when it spawns in, it will spawn it in exactly on that transform in exactly the direction that this transform is rotated in. So this could be useful if you need to have, say, a guard up against a wall, and you want it to spawn in that guard all the time in that location. You could do that. Where group A is tied to this, and it has the same kind of rules that transform B, the transform B has on using list 2. Again, map 2, group 1 here, and random rotation, random location. And so that's pretty much how everything works. Everything is managed through this, and so what the spawn controller does is it does a 50-50, or if you have more, it can do more, and it will just randomly go in and randomly pick from the list which one it wants to bring in, and then it will then spawn it based on the rules that you've configured into the scenario row. Okay, I'm just going to go close this. So that will do it for this little demo. So the next video that I'm going to be doing in this series will be our data structures. So we'll go ahead and show how you can build out the table as well as the saving and loading data structures that our spawn controller will use. In the video after that, which will be part 2 of the series, then we'll go ahead and build the actual controller component that it resides in the actor here, and which will then interpret what's on their table and spawn your characters and scene components into the locations that have been specified. And then in part 3, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create this little host actor, tie the component in there, and this will all be, by the time we get to part 3, it'll all be done in blueprints at that point. So we can just script all of this in. So we'll script the triggers so that we can use the remote triggers. We'll script in the proximity, and we'll also go ahead and set up a save load system so you can see how that's all working. All right. So if you're interested in building a solution out, then I will see you in part 1, where we will be going ahead and building out all things data structures. And as always, if you like what I'm doing, feel free to like and share my videos, as well as subscribe to my channel. And I will see you in the next video. Cheers. Bye.